Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, we're going to be talking about Saturn in the 12th house in a natal chart. Now, first off, some of you may remember when I first started my YouTube astrology channel, I did a series on the Saturn placements in the houses. They were a little bit concise, and some people may have referred to them as snappy. So what I decided to do was make another series on them in which the videos would be a little bit longer and more descriptive. So anyway, first thing up is, well, Saturn in the 12th house is comparable to Saturn in Pisces, but naturally you've got to blend in the zodiac sign with it. Saturn in Pisces in the 12th house can be different than Saturn in Virgo in the 12th house, as an example. Saturn in astrology is connected with one's career, has a connection with that. Now, you have Saturn posited in the 12th house in a natal chart. Well, that career, well, a lot of it, may be done in solitude, seclusion, and isolation. Um, and also it may, involve, the metaphysical, which includes astrology. You may be involved in some spiritual work or doing something with poetry or dancing or even prison work in some cases. Now, your career and livelihood could be one that involves a lot of sacrificing for others. You may work as an addiction counselor or something with oceanography or fishing, something that involves boating or docks. And it could be where you may be, in a position, somewhere where, it could even be where your career outlook, may feel nebulous or unclear at times. Now, another thing about Saturn is that it's associated with laborious work and industry. So if you have Saturn in the 12th house, well, a lot of your hard work and efforts, it might be going toward the less fortunate, which includes the impoverished, the oppressed, the homeless, and the hungry. It could be spiritual work. A lot of your hard efforts and work, again, may be done in solitude, seclusion, isolation. It could be where working hard may lead to some kind of secret sorrows, um, the self-undoing. I worked very hard as working as a dishwasher. They called essay. Um, at a Denny's many years ago, and that exacerbated some extensive nerve damage I had. And really the hard work didn't really do much for me, except wound up putting me in a situation where it's hard to do a lot of things now. But anyway, hard work may be connected. We could be working on docks, fishing, could be hospital, nursing, prison work, as some other examples. It may involve an aunt or an uncle. Uh, Now, the thing about Saturn too is that it's also connected with the father, older people, and authority figures. So if you have Saturn in the 12th house, well, there may be limitations and matters with the father. I have Saturn in the 12th house in my natal chart, and my father, passed away when I was 3 years old, and sometimes this placement can indicate, the early exit or departure of a father, sadly. And the father may be seen as passive, or someone that like solitude, seclusion, isolation, may be tied into one's secret sorrows. There may be something about the father too that might be deceptive or nebulous or unclear. But it could be the person, you may see this person as compassionate though as well. Now, in some cases, older people, authority figures, sometimes even the father, may wind up being, a hidden adversary. But yet you may see these people as altruistic and empathetic as well. Now, another thing about Saturn that it is associated with restrictions and limitations. So if you have Saturn in the 12th house of the natal chart, there may be certain restrictions and limitations that are associated. It could be with matters with an aunt or an uncle, whether these people are at a distance or whatever it might be. It might be just having, the solitude that you want, even sleep at times, being able to relax. Um, And even in terms of the imagination, may be limited to some degree. The expression of compassion, forgiveness, sacrifice, and also too, Saturn in the 12th house and in general may just have some kind of lack. I would say too, there seems to be lack of confidence, the self-assuredness, when you have Saturn in the 12th house in the natal chart. Again, I have Saturn in the 12th house, and it can um, be one, position where one, may lack, the confidence to do, the positivity, just trying to get, to do whatever. And also, Saturn astrology is connected with our fears, inhibition. It's about worry, apprehension. So Saturn in the 12th house, may simply fear what is unknown. It could be the paranormal, if you believe in that. There may be more fear in connection, with hidden enemies, more so than most people. There could be a fear, whether it's just something, the unseen enemy that could be in the neighborhood, could be a stalker, or somebody that may be a friend that's posing, of somebody that's really an enemy that's posing as a friend, and worried about, that as an example, worrying about whether, this person is truly, the friend or not, person you might suspect is a hidden enemy. It could be also too, the dreams or maybe the attainment of some dream or fantasy. Whether it may be where you might feel, the effort outweighs the reward or what have you. There actually may be more of a fear of drugs and alcohol with this position, more so than many others, and which could actually be a good thing. Also, the drowning could be possible, flooding, being in a situation where one is in an impoverished situation, one is facing poverty. Um, Also, too, Saturn in the 12th house in natal chart. Saturn is also connected with sorrow, dejection, despair, sadness, despondency. If you have Saturn in the 12th house in the natal chart, there may be more sorrow in matters connected with restrictions, limitations, something that has disappeared, some lost item, whatever it might be. It could be even over, imprisonment or incarceration in some cases. The person may express their sorrows often privately in solitude, seclusion, isolation. Um, it may be over matters with poverty or being deceived, dealing with deception. It could be over matters associated with an aunt or an uncle in some cases. And this placement is often very introspective. Again, I have this placement. I can really concur. I can really relate to that as well. And another thing about Saturn astrology is that it's connected with responsibility, our responsibilities, and there may be some limitation or restriction in whether it's in dealing with them or handling responsibilities. It may be something that one fears. It may be with matters pertaining to the less fortunate, again, which can include the oppressed, the hungry, the impoverished, the homeless. Uh, it may be, responsibilities may cause more lethargy and fatigue more so than most people. Maybe there's some kind of responsibility to spirituality or the metaphysical, which includes astrology. Maybe it's the a debilitated significant other. Keep in mind this is 6 houses from the 7th house. Now, Saturn astrology also is associated with chronic issues. So keep in mind, the 12th house does correspond with the zodiac sign Pisces. There may be chronic issues associated with the feet, the toes, the pineal gland, the lymphatic or immune system. It could be where one deals with these things very privately in isolation, solitude, seclusion. It could be, it might affect one's mental health, more so than most people. Um, Chronic issues may affect a connection with an aunt or an uncle. Being able, and also just it could affect the sleep more so than most people on average. And this placement is one which is, again, I stated about being very introspective before, also very introverted. People that have this placement may be reclusive or, succumb to some kind of secluded habits, like which I do. But anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.